we're your hosts, Nick Smith.
And Kylie Jo Smith. And today's episode is called, Let's Say You're Right.
So now what?
Well, that's it.
That's
in our house. That's all
thing.
That's all that needs to be said.
So now
you're
what?
right. Done. Walk out of the room. Everything's done.
That's only if it's me saying, hey, you're right. Let's just. Hey, before we get started, you who are listening to this, you who are watching this on YouTube, share it.
Check it out.
Sure.
It's easy. If you have one of these phones,
it's a
like
smartphone.
A smartphone.
Smarty-arty
You
phone.
swipe around. You get on here. You just go to the NixMyth podcast page. Boom.
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 Shakalaka.
Boom.
Shakalaka.
And you just have to find the link and share it. It's really,
That's all
really
you
easy.
gotta
This is
do.
what you'll see at the top of our page. It's a picture of him.
It's a picture
me
of
in the
doing this.
background.
Or something like
I'm
that.
in
I
the
don't
background
know. I
being
made a
silly.
face. So share this so that everyone
Yes.
can know what you're listening to.
And we also want to shout out this week some very important people. Normally we shout out some important people just in our life, in the life of the podcast, but we want to shout out the people who are out there right now who have to work.
Yes.
Who do not have the option to stay home.
Those
who
essential
are,
employees. How y'all doing?
Specifically, our nurses and doctors, first responders, anyone who's working in a doctor's office right now.
Mad respect.
Yes, and also our teachers.
Yes.
Who right now, it's pretty much anyone that has a kid.
But our educators have been stepping. I've been seeing a lot of cool stuff online where educators have been stepping up and serving their students even through distance learning and stuff.
Yeah.
And so shout out to educators. Y'all,
Yes.
y'all are the real deal.
Making it happen even in this time. So
Making
thank
it
you.
happen.
Thank you all
Scooting and
so much. If we had millions of dollars, we would donate.
at
all of
least
it.
10 or 20 of them
Yeah.
to you. Hey, we've got new merch coming after Easter.
Yes.
We also are going to start our Facebook giveaway now.
Yes. So this is how it works. Listen very carefully because we will not be repeating these
Escuchar.
instructions. I'm just kidding. We will repeat.
You could always just play it back if you want.
No, once you play it, it self-destructs. So what you want to do first, go to the NixMyth podcast page
Yep.
or go to our YouTube account, our page, excuse me.
Yep.
You want to find your favorite episode from the last year.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a link that you can share. Pretty much every platform has the ability to share it. You will want to share it on your Facebook page.
Facebook only, y'all.
And tag the NixMyth podcast page. You have to tag us because that's how you enter. Every episode you share and tag us in, that's another entry. Here's the thing. You get 5 bonus entries if you want to shout us out in a video. If you want to say, hey, everybody, I love the NixMyth podcast page, and here are the 20 reasons why. It doesn't have to be that
would
many,
be awesome.
but
Let's do all 20 reasons.
you get 5 bonus entries for shouting us out in a video and tagging us in that. You get 10 bonus entries.
10 of them.
For all of our existing Patreon supporters.
If you're a Patreon supporter, shout out, and you get 10.
You're amazing.
You get 10 entries. You ain't even got to do nothing.
You don't have to do anything. You just
10
get
entries.
just from being a Patreon supporter. And if you become a Patreon supporter, which by the way, it only takes $2.
2 of them.
$2 a month.
$2.
You can be a Patreon supporter. You
frog
get 10
skins.
bonus entries. That's for all new and existing Patreon supporters this month.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. Again, you have to tag the NixMyth podcast page so that we can actually count this as an entry.
Yes.
There is no limit no
limit.
No boundaries on the number of entries that you can have.
Off. Take the limits off.
Remember our parody of that?
I don't.
Take the lemon salt. Take the lemon salt. It's a seasoning song.
I was going to go with No Limit, like the old Master P stuff. No limit sold.
See, I was going a different route.
It's all good.
Fine.
Yours was a lot more sanctified, and I appreciate that. Okay, so just to go over one more time.
Yeah.
You get 1 entry for every episode you share, and it could be a YouTube episode or it could be an audio episode.
Yeah, you can just share it with a link.
You have to share it on our Facebook, and you have to tag us in it.
On your Facebook.
Share it on Facebook and tag us in it. You get 5 bonus entries if you make a video shouting out the NixMyth podcast.
Yeah.
You get 10 bonus entries if you are a Patreon supporter, either current or a new Patreon supporter through the month of April.
Yes, and we will draw for 3
Trace.
Count them, 3 winners
3.
on the last day of April. There is no purchase necessary, no strings attached. This is only valid for U.S. residents above the age of 18. I have to say all these things.
Okay.
This is in no way, no way affiliated with Facebook, the company.
Or any of that stuff.
Or any of the,
y'all get it.
It's
just
our
us
thing.
doing
It's
some
not
stuff.
Facebook's thing or YouTube or Instagram, any of that.
We got free merch. There's going to be 3 different packages that we are giving away.
It's going to be awesome.
And we're doing all this just because we love you guys for listening to us and for following us. And we want to get the word out. And so this is just a thank you from us to y'all.
So thanks.
So thanks. There's that.
All right. So, and also like, it's crazy because social media has changed. Hush. Social media has changed everything about we do.
Or we don't do.
About the way we do
Uh-huh.
everything.
Yes.
Including marketing, including like you own a small business nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just, I mean, in most places, you can't just have a storefront.
Yeah.
You got to start. We have had to start here. And
Yeah.
so all this to say, like, we do this because we love you. It does show support for us. And we're not doing it in a way that's like, look at us, we're so amazing. We're doing it because we're like, hey, we have a community of people, right?
That's right.
Let's band together. Let's show other people what this is all about. So
Yeah, and speaking of that Facebook thing, one of our vendors that we work with for some of our merch, they don't even have a website. Like they only have a
that's
Facebook
right.
page. And so you can go into the building and deal with them directly, or you can go to their Facebook, but that's it. And so, yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so today's episode, let's say you're right. We are talking about all of these conspiracy theories out there.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest or craziest conspiracy theory about the Rona or about the current quarantine situation that you've heard?
Okay, so one of the craziest ones is that this was, that it's man-made because it's patented, and that the owner of the patent, there's a theory about who owns it, and that this person is trying to purge the earth of excessive people.
Trying to do population control.
I've
heard that one.
Yep,
I've heard that one, yeah.
That's a crazy one I've heard. What about you?
I heard that this is all the craziest one I heard, and whether, again, we don't know if these are true or not. We just talking about what we're talking about. That the reason everyone is quarantined is because they're putting up 5G towers everywhere, and they don't want anyone to see it. So they're telling everybody.
Even though they already announced they're going to do it.
Yeah, but they don't want us to see them do it. And so they're putting 5G. Another one, now this is one I just thought of.
Uh-oh.
Just now.
You just made it up?
Yeah. So it's a thing, because this is what you
definitely
do
a real theory.
with conspiracy theories. You just make stuff up and you say them. And
it makes sense, so you got to say it, yeah.
What if they're transporting a gigantic spaceship from the East Coast to the West Coast, and so they quarantine everybody so that they can get this spaceship to where it needs to be? I don't know where they're going or where they got it from, but it just came to me just now. Like, what if that's what's
They're
happening?
getting it to Area 51.
That's right. It just landed, and so they're like, how can we get everybody? Ooh, worldwide pandemic. That would help.
Why would they need to involve the rest of the world?
Maybe
with
it's
that?
not the rest of the world. Maybe it's just all fake.
I have heard this. That is a theory I've heard.
Everything's staged.
Everything's staged, because I saw somebody posted a picture that was like, this picture was almost identical from two different news sources. One of them was like broadcasting in Italy or something. Another one was from the U.S. The exact same hospital scene, the exact same equipment.
It's called stock photos.
And
people use stock
what's crazy?
photos.
Here's the thing. A couple of years ago, we lost my brother-in-law, and we had shared like images from his Facebook with the news, because they did a story on Darren and on our family grieving through hope.
Yeah.
Not even a year later, one of the same photos from his Facebook page was used in the news incorrectly in a story.
That was actually, it's a terrible story, but it's also funny.
Right, but like
I had to contact the news station and be like, "Hey, my brother's dead. Can you take his picture down saying that he's wanted and that his name is something else?" That's not who that is.
Like, if we
it was ridiculous.
Right. So this happens, and especially during a time where it's like super stressful for people. I'm sure a lot of these news stations don't have photos just available. They don't have reporters they're sending into the emergency rooms.
They're just trying to make it work, y'all.
And so like that was a theory that was like, this is obviously fake because these two photos are identical.
They're the same. I have the same mindset based on any conspiracy theory, and it's because I'm skeptical in general, right?
Yes, this is true.
I just
This is true of you.
I don't ever take anyone's word for what it is. Even people that have conspiracy theories, and they're like, "Hey, this is what's going on." I'm like, okay, so what if you're right? Let's just say you're right.
Yeah, let's go there.
Let's say you're right.
Let's do it.
So now what?
Yeah.
So there's this huge conspiracy, and everyone has to, stay inside because they're putting 5G towers up. Okay.
Or it's fake and there's absolutely no reason for it at all.
Okay. So now what? Like, what is the point in getting wrapped up in these conspiracy theories?
Well, and the question I have is like, what are you doing about this? If that's true, does your knowledge of this truth change the reality that we're all dealing with?
Yeah, I think for me, it feels like what people are doing is they want, for some reason, to be the ones to be right, just so they can tell everybody, "Ooh, I told you. I told y'all that's what was
See,
happening. Okay,
no.
you want a cookie? Do you want? Can I give you a star? Do you want? Is that what you want? You want a
do
high
you-
five? Here, you get to be helper for the day. Thank you.
You were right.
You were correct.
Good for you.
It's like, who wants to be? If your theory, let's just say you have some crazy theory that they're doing population control, right?
Right.
And you're right. What do you want for that?
Well,
You were right about this terrible thing that's happening.
right.
Awesome. If you can't stop it, you can't change it, you can't prove it.
Right.
You just want to be right? Like, is that what you want?
Yeah.
Or because a lot of the times people are on Facebook or they're on Twitter or Instagram or whatever the social outlet is, and they're just proclaiming from the mountaintops all these theories.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just shouting about how this is fake and that's fake and this isn't real or this is really what's happening. Okay.
But
what does that do?
Yeah.
Like, how are you changing the world? How does this change your life, my life?
Oh my gosh.
Like what about this is good? And especially to our Christian brothers and sisters. Like we got a couple verses for y'all just to put these.
Got to put it in perspective.
Got to. So a couple that came to mind, Matthew 12:36.
Yeah.
And this is Jesus talking, and he says, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every careless word they speak.
That is truthfully one of the hardest scriptures.
It's pretty, it's
because
pretty
it
tough.
this is not one of those verses that gives any exception to the people of God. It doesn't give an exception if you're a good person. It doesn't say, I tell you on that day of judgment, really bad people.
Yeah.
Really mean people, politicians.
Yeah.
It just says people will give account for every careless word they speak.
Careless word they speak.
And we can try to like split hairs over this. Like, well, if I typed it on Facebook, it doesn't count.
I hope somebody's talking to Jesus like, well, listen here, Jesus.
Well, listen, Lord, I typed it. I didn't say it. It's
just
different.
So you know,
it wasn't slander. It was libel. Very big difference. Okay. Just want to point that out to you,
just so you
creator
know,
of the universe.
Lord, if that is your real name. I just...
Elohim, as they say. So yeah, there is no exceptional
no
base
exception to
for this. And we all will be in that place. And it's on the day of judgment. It doesn't just say like, hey, when you come to the end of your life.
Yeah.
Like part of me, I'm like, okay, does that mean that like, okay, my life's over on this earth? Do I have a judgment that I experienced then? And then we get to bring it all back up again on the day of judgment.
It's a whole nother conversation.
I know it is.
Whole nother conversation.
I know it is, preacher. I know.
Whole nother conversation. But that concept of every careless word you speak, like think about how many times you say things that you don't mean. How many times you say stuff that really you're speaking out of turn. You're speaking without any sort of knowledge base. You're speaking without any sort of informed consent. You're speaking without consulting or even praying about it. You're just talking. You're just talking to hear yourself talk, just as they say back in the day, bumping the gums. Like you're just trying to get your voice heard. And God says that you're going to have to give account for every careless word, because one of the things that our careless words do, especially as believers, is they can misdirect people away from the Lord.
Yeah.
And so if you're out there promoting fear and you're promoting that people would be running and hiding and being afraid and not trusting the Lord, and you're promoting that people would do everything within their power except for pray, like, how are you actually building up the kingdom?
Right.
How are you actually using your words as God has called us to use our words?
Yeah. Or if you're out there promoting that everyone should buck the system, and how dare they try to take my rights away, and all of these things, and in a way leading the church to not be obedient.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of
being a rebel.
A rebel? Don't be a rebel.
Y'all better not be rebelling. Being a rebel for the sake of rebellion. Is
right.
What I was trying
a
to
rebel
say.
without a cause.
Without a pause, even. Rebelling.
Yeah, this is also another way that you can lead people astray, because we all know, like, we don't need to give the world reason to dislike the church or to criticize Christians.
They really don't. They've got enough.
But we do that, church. We do it when we start saying these things just for the sake of being heard, just for the sake of, well, I want y'all to know.
Yeah.
They're not going to take this away from me. Nobody's.
Well,
calm down.
That takes me to the verse in James. James 1:19 says, "Know this, my beloved brothers and sisters, y'all ain't off the hook. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. So
Yeah. Footnote, slow to type, slow to tweet,
slow with them thumbs,
slow to Insta.
right? Slow to snap pics. Through this COVID-19 pandemic, I've seen more people make bold, rash statements and then have to turn around and be like, oh, well, I didn't know that it was that serious.
Yeah.
I've seen more people being like, as soon as they heard anything, oh, it's all fake. It doesn't matter. We can do whatever we want. And then they start hearing about people dying. They're like, oh, wait, this is a thing.
Yeah. Or criticizing people for responding to it in a way that is not in agreement with their worldview.
Yeah, either way, whether it's being cautious or being uncautious, I guess. Discautious. Bold.
Ear cautious.
Anyway. And so what scripture tells us is it's our job to be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to anger and slow to respond. Like the old thing that we tell kids, like you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth so that you can listen twice as much as you speak.
Yeah.
It's very true. It is our responsibility as Christians not to start toting whatever nonsense we just heard until we've evaluated it, until we've prayed about it, until we've sought the Lord and be like, okay, is this helpful?
Well, but a lot of times what happens is I already have a perspective. I already have my opinion of how things are going. And so as soon as I hear something that validates that, whatever the source may be, I hear it. I'm quick to hear it because it totally validates my position. And then I'm going to spew it out again. It's not that we're necessarily so slow to hear. We're quick to listen, especially if it truly like makes my position seem right.
Yeah.
But then it's good. That slow to speak. It's that true discernment that we lack because the space from when we hear it on the news or we see it on our news feed to when we push the share button, I mean, it is lightning fast, and it's designed that way. If you know anything about the psychology of like social media, it's designed that it's like this instant gratification. It's reactive. There's nothing about it that requires much thought. This is why little kids can now get on Facebook and demolish everything. That's what they're doing on there. But like, this is why it's so easy for us to just go to that base, like reactive mentality. Yeah.
And a lot of it comes from this, this very human desire that is rooted in pride, that is just wanting to be right. And I think some of it stems from this feeling of being out of control, like knowing that there's nothing that you can actually control. And so what you can control is affirming knowledge that you think is correct.
Right.
Because that gives you some sense of pride in like, okay, I'm not completely out of control. I at least know what's happening.
Yeah.
I at least know what's going on.
Yeah.
Which really doesn't do anything but puff yourself up.
Yeah.
That's all
knowledge
it does.
That puffs up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so humility is so necessary for the church. Being humble.
Sit down. Be humble.
Be humble.
Yeah.
Just being able to allow yourself to not be the center of attention, to not be the one that like, I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was all of, and if you did that change the outcome?
Right.
A lot of times it is a self-serving statement to be like, I knew all this stuff was happening, because a lot of times we're not taking that to the places that we can actually control. You know what I mean? Like, it's different if I hear something in town like, hey, they're going to close the store at 6 p.m. So I come home and say, hey, we need to get a grocery list together because I need to go to the store before 6 p.m.
Right. To affect change.
Yeah. In the area, as opposed to being like, oh, they're closing the store at 6 p.m. I need to get on Facebook and tell the whole world, guess
Did you
what,
know
y'all?
They're closing the store at 6 p.m.? Yeah. How dare they close the store at 6 p.m.? They used to be open until 7.
What does that, and none of that's true, but that was a hypothetical. But what does that change?
Yeah.
You know, me just shouting it from the mountaintop. And there's this guise or disguise actually that we put on that says, well, I want to share information with people.
I want people to be informed.
But a lot of times we don't know if it's true information or not.
Yeah.
It's misinformation or it's just not helpful.
Yeah. And it's not always that we want them to be informed. We want them to be inflamed with us. Inflamed, not inflamed, not like a inflammation.
Not like an infection.
No, we want them to have the same path. We want someone to feel some type of way with us. We want commiseration. We want to be seen and known and validated. So we seek that in anything we can find it, like anywhere we can find it. And social media is one of those areas where we constantly see that. And we oftentimes think it's just in the girl who's sharing pictures of herself or the family who's always sharing about their amazing vacations. We think that those are the ones that are seeking validation, when a lot of times it's also those of us who are sharing things just to get a reaction from people. And then we get mad if someone doesn't agree with us, people that won't share, or people that are posting things that are contrary to what we shared. And we start to get this like puffed up, this conceited sense of self-righteousness. And that's not condemnation. It's just understanding how our human mind and heart work.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I'm thinking of at Calvary.
Okay.
When the crucifixion was complete, when it was done, the disciples had been told that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And their reaction most of the time was like, no,
not you, Lord.
Couldn't possibly. Conspiracy. I will not let this happen to you.
Yeah.
And then it happened right before their eyes, and they were proven wrong. And what did they go and do when they were proven wrong?
They went and hid.
They went and hid.
Yeah.
They went and tucked away because they were, it was just there, plain as day for everyone to see. No, he really did go through this.
Oh, he meant die.
He meant like for real in front of everybody,
like death.
In this way, betrayed. And he said one of us would do it, and one of us did it.
Yep.
And so like just putting that in perspective for us as like for us today, when you experience the same thing, when you like, because it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You're either going to be proven wrong, or someone's not going to validate your perspective. What's your reaction in that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought of that. I was just thinking like, well, wait, there actually was a period in time where a big conspiracy, no, it can't possibly be. No, this isn't going to happen. It's not going to be that way. What's really going to happen? No, this is exactly what it was.
Well, and the thing that happened after Christ's resurrection, because it is Holy Week, y'all, if you didn't know that, today, the day this is released is Palm Sunday. And so this is Holy Week. And so what happened after the resurrection was this, like this image of, wow, he did say these things. And he did say this was what was going to happen, but nobody was running around shouting like, see, I knew it. I told you. I told you he was right. I told you he was the Christ. People were just accepting the truth as it was presented and responding and living their lives in light of that truth. It wasn't just knowledge for knowledge's sake. Yeah. And my fear is a lot of people, they seek out these conspiracy theories just so they can have some sort of monopoly on knowledge. Like they're just seeking for ways, again, to puff themselves up. Yeah. And all that does is make you look pompous. Yeah. All that does is, and it also, just so y'all know out there, when all you do is throw rocks at other people, it lets people know that you live in a glass house. Like when all you're doing is trying to call out everybody else's nonsense, and all you're doing is, instead of encouraging people and instead of building people up, you're just saying, well, this person's wrong and that person's wrong, and everyone else looks at you and be like, this person's going through some things. There's something wrong with this person.
There's an insecurity there that's very, very, very obvious.
Very obvious. And it shines light on the areas of your life where you're fearful. It shines light on the areas of your life where you feel you're out of control and you're lashing out, trying to regain some sense of control. And so there's a huge difference between a knowledge that brings about change. One of my professors, and a lot of people have said it, but we talked about the difference between information and transformation. And so if the information you're given or getting isn't transformative, then it's basically worthless. Yeah. Like, and I'm going to add something. If the information is only transforming you to be a more fearful, more timid, more, I don't even know another word, more cautious, more scared. Because I think being cautious is okay, but if you're living in fear, then that's information that's not good. Yeah. Because when we're walking in Christ, the information that Christ reveals to us, it doesn't puff us up. It doesn't make us proud. It doesn't make us arrogant. And it also doesn't lead us to be fearful. Yeah. And so if anything you're doing, anything you're promoting is this concept of like, listen, I know what's really going on here. Okay, awesome.
Good. Great.
Cool. How is it with your soul though? Like that's awesome. Cool. You know all this stuff. Well, you're really smart.
Honestly, like one of the things that like the early church dealt with was like Gnosticism and things like people, knowing the truth. Like we know. We like, we know it. People who were woke, like that, and being
the woketivist.
And like, it's okay to be woke. It's okay to have an awareness of things that, maybe the general public doesn't. But there was a little bit of that started to creep into the church. People that thought they knew things better than somebody else, so they tried to lord it over them.
Yeah.
And Paul constantly called that out in his letters. And in the Corinthian church, they had an issue with food.
Mm-hmm.
They had an issue with people like...
I got an issue with food too, just especially during quarantine, just being real.
I mean, it's the truth. But food being offered to idols. And some people thinking like, well, this isn't a big deal. You know, I can handle this because I'm woke.
Yeah.
This would be how they would have said it if they were around today.
No, that's how they said it then, I'm sure. That's if you translate the Greek or the Aramaic,
it says woke.
I'm sure it's
hashtag woke.
Listen,
even.
hashtag woke.
But they're like, I'm woke, I'm good. And Paul was like, listen, there is like knowledge that like all of us have some knowledge about this subject.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying like, but knowledge makes us proud of ourselves. But love can. Love makes us helpful to one another.
Mm.
And then he says, I love in verse 2 in chapter 8 of 1 Corinthians, verse 2, he says, in fact, people who think they know so much don't know anything at all.
Man.
And like,
which is, I can't remember which philosopher said that, like, because Paul was super smart. And so Paul knew all this stuff. He read a lot.
Yeah.
And what is it? The more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know.
Yeah.
And like that is the truth.
Parenting 101. Parenting
101. But let's talk about this because I just want to bring this up.
Yeah.
We studied the book together, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, about 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
Stephen Covey.
Covey?
Covey.
Stephen, okay. But he talks about the circle of influence versus the circle of concern. Yes. And so if you've never read this book, it's very important for you to read it, just as a general productive person. And or
even effective
person. And he talks about all of these concepts from a Christian standpoint, even though it's not like a Bible study. Mm-hmm. He is a believer, and he's talking about the concepts of being an effective person from a biblical standpoint, from a Christian worldview.
But it's not preachy.
No, it's good. It's a good book. But what he talks about is so many people are involved in their circle of concern. It's this huge circle of all these things that worry you,
like your health, your children, your government, the war, bigger like outside of you, problems.
Things that you truly can't control, things you can't influence, right?
Yeah,
like I'm worried about what Kim Jong-un's gonna do, right? Like okay, that's in my sphere of concern, but then the circle of influence are the things that you can actually affect.
Yeah,
the things in your life that by your actions and who you are as a human being, you actually have some sort of influence over. Yeah. And so what happens in a lot of these conspiracy theories is people are investing in their circle of concern. Yeah. They're investing their time and they're focused so much on their circle of concern that they forget that there is a circle of influence.
Yeah.
And your circle of influence are the things and the people and the situations that rely on your presence. Mm-hmm. And if all you're doing is pumping your life filled with fear and you're reading all of these conspiracy theories and you're typing stuff out and you're just promoting all this stuff, what you're doing is you're actually making yourself less influential.
Yeah.
The things you can actually control, that circle's getting smaller.
Yeah.
And your circle of concern is getting bigger.
Yeah. And what's crazy is like you're creating a system where you have to react constantly.
Yeah.
Because your circle of concern, that's going to change. Things outside of your ability to control are always going to be changing.
Yeah,
and so then you are constantly going to have to be reacting to different elements that are coming at you. Whereas your influential circle, you have the ability to be proactive.
Yeah.
Where even if things aren't changing, like with our children, your marriage, your job, like the actual job that you have, the function that you have in your company or wherever you're at, that's proactive work that you can do that can transform, it can change, it can still kind of ebb and flow, but you're constantly proactively pouring into that.
Yes, you affect change in that sphere. Yeah. And so I guess when you're looking at all of these theories, as they're coming at you, because if you're like me and you're listening to this and you're like me, you're getting a lot of these theories, a lot of these wild and crazy things, and some of them may be true. Just to be real, some of these could be 100% accurate.
Yeah.
At the same time, how does that affect my actual circle of influence?
Yeah. Are you in the circle of influence that can change anything about these things? Like if it is population control, is that within your circle of influence to be able to stop that?
You can be aware and you can make decisions based on your awareness, but those decisions, like I can't remember who said it, but you have to think globally, act locally.
Yeah.
Right? That's a
It's
saying.
like a missional mindset.
Yeah. So we think like, yeah, okay, all these things in the world may be happening.
Yeah.
But how do I affect change where I am?
Yeah. And for believers, like this is something we understand when we talk about the Great Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many people in the world. There's so many unreached people groups in the world. What are we
That's
going
right.
to do? There's people that are going to hell every day. Okay, yes. But you cannot reach every single person.
By yourself.
On your own, you cannot do it.
Yeah.
And you are not going to save them anyway.
Yeah. Only God saves.
Right. What you can do and what we are equipped to do, what we are empowered to do, those are the things that allow us to actually have influence.
Yeah.
And that actually ripples out. That's the thing that we don't really think about that much. I know I don't think about it that much, like how I impact one life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then that flows out to affect another life.
Yeah.
And it becomes exponential, but you don't always get to see it in the moment.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think it was Matt Chandler. He said a thing. He said, God creates miracles most of the time through everyday people being faithful where they are.
Yeah.
And when you look at scripture, yeah, you've got Moses, you've got Joshua, you've got Abraham and Isaac, and you've got all these like pillars of individuals that are exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have all of these other people that are just the people of Israel, that are just individuals that are every day living out their faith, passing on their faith to the next generation.
Yeah.
And that transformed nations.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the way the church grows, like it didn't grow because one person, apart from Christ, one individual stood up and was like, I know something different. I know something, you guys. You guys,
Right.
everyone look at me. I know something.
Well, and even Christ,
Awesome.
like his wasn't just knowledge.
No.
It was I am.
That's right. He
I
affected
am.
his sphere of influence.
Yeah.
Jesus only, what they say, he only operated within 30 miles or something like that.
Yeah, something crazy.
It's-
Whatever he could travel on foot.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
not very far and changed the world.
Yeah.
Of course, he was fully God, fully man, but at the same
Yes.
time, he operated 100% in his sphere of
Well,
influence.
even looking at someone who was just human
Mhm.
with no deity,
Yeah.
Paul,
Paulo, my boy.
the words that Paul wrote from prison
He
have
was
circulated
locked up,
the
but
earth
wouldn't let him
many
out.
times.
Paul
So
and
yeah, so
Akon
like
had a lot in common.
looking at that, like giving that perspective of what is your circle of concern. It's okay to know what your concerns are.
Yeah.
In the church, we call it joys and concerns. It's okay to have them. It's okay to bring
Amen.
them to the attention
Amen,
of the
church.
preacher. It's
Amen.
okay to want somebody to pray for your concerns
Uh-huh.
and lift up your joys. But you have got to have a firm grip on your
Mhm.
circle of influence.
That's right.
You have to know, like, who are the people you're pouring into and who are the people that are pouring into you?
Yeah.
Because you influence both, just in different ways.
I want to share, before we get to practicality,
Yeah.
I want to share just one more scripture with us.
Mhm.
Ephesians 4.
Say it correctly.
Ephesians 4. Paul is writing to the church in Ephesus, and a lot of times this verse is used to talk about cursing, talk about foul language.
Okay. Yeah.
But I want us to think about this verse in the context of sharing false information, pumping out fear.
Okay.
And this is what he says in chapter 4, verse 29. He says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen."
Okay.
And so what Paul is talking about in here, he says, listen, if you're not speaking in a way that builds others up according to their needs, right? If somebody is chocked full of fear, they don't need you to tell them another conspiracy theory about how the world is going to heck in a handcart, right? They
Right.
don't need you to sit there and be like, well, you know, you're going to have to start shooting people because they're going to break into your house to steal your canned goods. Like, that's not what's needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is it actually necessary? And is it useful for the
Uh-huh.
building up of those around you?
That's good.
Because if it's not, then what you doing? What are you doing?
What is you doing, baby?
What is you doing, baby?
Well, and here's the thing. I love what Paul had to say too. Going back to the idols thing,
mm-hmm.
he was instructing people like, okay, look, you may do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You may want to go and consume this because you've got a strong conscience. But don't let that cause a problem for someone else with a weak conscience.
Yeah.
So it's this understanding of compassion and empathy and like
Yes.
serving,
Humility.
not looking at yourself as the most important one in the room and trying to serve your own needs. So maybe you can consume, the conspiracy theories. Maybe you can take that in like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And like you can go on a rabbit hunt. You can spend hours doing that. But you know what? The mother of 5, the single mom of 5,
Mm-hmm.
who's just trying to make ends meet right now, she doesn't have the ability to do that. So what she's going to get from what you're consuming is actually going to make her stumble.
Yeah.
So think about this and not just in a way of like, well, but I care about these people.
So I want to tell them all this stuff. Yeah, but what are you actually influencing in their life?
And prove that you care for them.
Yeah.
Prove it by allowing your need to be right or your need to share information. Allow that to be less than their need to have comfort and peace.
Amen. That's good.
Just for a moment.
So let's talk about practicality. We're already dipping into it. So
We
practicality.
are, yes.
What is it that we can do with this concept?
Okay, so we have do's and don'ts.
All right.
Normally, practicality, we just like to stick with the do's. We like to stay positive. But we're going to say don't broadcast fears and concerns. Not just saying, hey, I need a prayer request for this. That's different.
Yeah.
But don't broadcast all these massive concerns. But do call, text, message, FaceTime with the people in your life with whom you actually have relationship.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm getting from that is like when you say broadcast, like don't put everything out on Facebook just to cast the wide net of like everything's going crazy, you guys. But if you do have actual concerns, and if there is something that you feel is an imminent threat or an imminent danger, you need to reach out to the people that you actually have a relationship with.
Yeah.
And especially if you don't have a church family, listen to me, people. Now is a time that you need believers in Christ, people who can pray for you, people who can lift you up, people who can come alongside of you in the spirit and in physical needs and be there for you. You need a church family. Yeah. Especially when you're fearful, especially when you don't know who else to turn to and you just need someone to pray with you.
Yeah. Well, and for believers, if you have people in your life that you know are not connected with a church, you know that are alone, like who are single people who are just sitting there at home or
Isolated,
they're isolated away, then it's your responsibility to reach out to them.
Reach out, connect.
You cannot expect them to come knock on your door. You're going to have to reach out to them.
And I like what you said about relationship. If you're going to be sharing these concerns, you know that old saying, nobody cares what you know till they know that you care. If you're sharing knowledge of things with people, they need to be people that you have relational stock with, not just generic, I'm just going to shotgun this out there. Nobody cares. Don't nobody care what you got to say, unless you're sharing it out of a place of true relationship. And that goes the other way too. If you're hearing crazy theories from people that you don't have relationship with,
blow it off.
Let's just not assume that they're telling you the truth.
Yeah, just let it go.
Just until you know you can trust the source. Don't share stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So do stay informed. This is important. This means proactively seeking information, not just following news. So that's going to involve you. Like if you see something come across and you're like, oh my goodness, is that true?
Check the source.
Hey, guess what? Google is awesome.
Check the source.
You might have to fish through some things, but yeah, check it.
That's
it's not that hard.
No.
Yeah.
Also pray, y'all. Pray.
Do pray. It's
pray.
Do pray.
Do pray. Do pray.
Yes.
Pray, dude. Because here's the truth. When you're praying, it's not sitting there hoping that you feel good about your situation because you're talking to some imaginary friend. Like when you're praying, you're accessing the power of the living God. Like you are speaking to the only being in all eternity that can actually change history. Yeah. And so prayer is the most powerful tool that you have. You're worried, pray. You're scared, pray. You don't know if something's true or not, pray. Be in prayer because ultimately God is the only one in control.
That's right.
There is nothing in your control. And I think at this point, if not any other time in our lifetime, people understand how fragile their lives are and how little they can actually control. Yeah. And so now is the time that you need to be rooted and grounded in your word. You need to be rooted and grounded in an active prayer life. Yeah. And so my other do focus your energy. I know right now people are getting stir crazy. And so a lot of times we go down rabbit holes and we want to share and we want to post and we want to do all this stuff. But listen, focus your energy on loving people. On what is a tangible way that you can love people, love your neighbors, love your family. That could be sending text messages. That can be
sending money.
Could be sending. That's right. That could be Cash Apping somebody some dough.
Get them some Uber Eats.
That's right. But focus your energy on that, on being loved, allowing yourself to receive love, to let God love you. Focus your energy on listening to God. Yeah. Instead of always trying to tell God what you think your next theory is, focus on How can I be quiet before the Lord? How can I
Yeah.
allow him to speak into my spirit?
Yeah, that's good. And I think like the being loved part is probably the hardest one for us because we just want everyone else to know how much they're loved. Like
Yeah.
really, I really believe that. I believe so much of
Just clear
what
my
we
throat, y'all.
do
Don't win the
is I really do want people to know they're loved. I want them to know they're
Yeah.
cared for. I want them to know He is crazy about them.
Amen. Yeah.
I don't always show it the right way, and I won't always communicate it the best way. But that being loved, that's hard for us.
Yeah.
Even though almost everything we do cries out that I need love, I need validation, I need to know that what I'm going through is seen and is cared about by someone greater than me.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that just involves you asking someone to give you 10 minutes to hear what you're going through.
Yeah.
Maybe that involves just asking someone, hey, can you watch my kids? Can you, I know right now, I know how it is, but maybe you just have to take a leap of faith and ask someone in your life to love on you in that way.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
It is. Very hard. Yeah.
Being vulnerable is very hard, but I will tell you, it will shatter some of that pride that creeps in that tells you have to know better than everyone else.
That's right.
Okay, well, this has been the NixMyth podcast. We hope you've gotten a dose of real life.
No myth.
Be blessed.